Hey everyone, welcome to EduMatch. So thank you so much for joining us. So follow along with us on Twitter as well if you feel so inclined. We are also right now on the YouTube portion of the chat. So today we are going to be talking about living intentionally. We have two amazing moderators and one amazing panelist. So we're going to kick things off with panelist introductions, going first to Martine. Hey Martine, I think you might still be muted.
That always happens. I'm Martine Brown, and I am an instructional coach with 9 through 12 high school in Garland, Texas. I'm excited to be with you guys today. My belief is that schools need to be student-centered, data-driven, and tech-ready. And so I'm always excited to talk about anything related to those types of topics. So thanks for having me again today.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. It's great to have you back. All right. So we are going to now kick it over to our moderator. So we'll have an introduction first from Robin, and it's her first time here on Tweet and Talk. So welcome to EduMatch Tweet and Talk, Robin. If you could please introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, I'm Robin Harris from Griffin, Georgia. I'm an instructional technology coach and I work primarily with the elementary schools. And I also have the pleasure of working with Leslie Fagan every single day.
Awesomeness. So thank you so much for being here. We're excited to learn with you. So speaking of Leslie, aka the Faganator, Leslie, welcome back to EduMatch. If you could please reintroduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. My name is Leslie Fagan. I am an instructional technology coach. And as Robin said, we work together every day. She handles the elementary schools in our district, and I do the middle schools and the high schools and a couple of alternative type campuses. For instance, our College and Career Academy, our alternative school, and our psychoeducational facility, for lack of a better term. And Robin and I have been doing this together for, I think this is our 5th year. I'm excited to be here to talk about living intentionally with our panelists and those who are following along in the chat on Twitter. So I'll go ahead and get started with the first question if we're ready. Our first question is, what does it mean to live intentional?
Oh, I think that's a great question. Living intentionally for me just means being very purposeful. And a lot of times that also means finding your purpose. Right now, I'm reading Michelle Obama's Being Michelle. She talks a lot about this idea of professionally and personally, how you have to navigate finding your own purpose and finding work that's meaningful to you. And I think that, at least for me professionally, being intentional means doing the kind of work that I enjoy and that makes me happy, because then I know that my baseline purpose, which is to help support the instructional lives of teachers and students, improve. And I'm really passionate about that. Like, if a teacher, I believe that if a teacher is happy and there's tech to support making their workflows better and making their instructional days better, then they'll have happier students. Happier students are students who are more willing to learn. And so for me, living intentionally is all about traveling the journey towards your purpose, but then once you have it, really taking it and running with it.
And just to piggyback on that, I found this great quote that how we spend our days is, of course, how we spend our lives. So if we're not doing our reaching for our purpose, then that's how we're going to end up spending our lives, and it's not going to be purposeful. So again, living intentionally is being purposeful about what you're doing.
I would definitely agree with that, with what you're saying. So both of you, I think, made some great points. When I think of living intentionally, then I'm thinking of everything aligning. So your actions, your thoughts, your words. Like I've heard in the field of cognitive behavioral science, and also I think something by Frank Outlaw said, watch your thoughts, they become your actions, watch your actions, they become your character, something to that effect. So I feel like when you are working with intention, then you're making sure that all of these align. So that would be my takeaway.
I know for me, like with the new year, I always probably work this time of the year harder more than any other time, which is something I guess we should all work on. is to try to be intentional over long spans of time. I was thinking about, this is kind of weird. I was thinking about Benjamin Franklin, because if you read some of his works and like some of his personal writing, he was a big believer in like setting schedules and like organizing your time. And so one of the things I'm doing like literally this week as far as being intentional with my time is I've been using Google Keep to schedule out my mornings and my evenings. And I'm literally, my goal is to get time back and make each minute of my day more purposeful and valid and useful so that I can improve my productivity. And I got that from Benjamin Franklin because he was big on productivity.
I like that. Every year for probably the last, I'd say 4 or 5 years, I've done that hashtag one word instead of doing a resolution, list of resolutions, because probably like most of America, I would have, 5, 6, 7, 10 things, and I would accomplish absolutely none of them. So I came across the one word movement. And this year, my word is actually intentional. And one of the things that Robin turned me on to was bullet journaling. And she is much better at it than I am, but this is my bullet journal. And for this year, I have my cover page, and I put in here a definition of the word intentional because I want to make sure that this guides absolutely all that I do. And the definition that I put, it's an adjective, an action performed with awareness, done deliberately, consciously, and on purpose. And my plan for the year is to love, speak, and live with intention. So I think that because that's my focus, then I can make sure that I don't have all of the extra things that have a tendency to weigh me down, and I don't want to get bogged down in the unnecessary things. So how about we move to question number 2? Robin, you ready for question 2?
Yep, that leads right into it. What are the strategies that you use to live intentionally? So Leslie mentioned the bullet journaling. Are there other ways that people and other strategies that you guys are using to live intentionally?
So right now, I'm really trying hard to use Google Keep because I do like having lists, and I like the feeling of being able to check things off of that list. We'll see how it goes tomorrow. Tomorrow's my first official day because I'll be back into more traditional routines. I will say, in addition to teaching, I run, and so I like to be intentional with my runs. And so finding causes that are meaningful to me help me stick to my running. So I have a sibling that's on dialysis. And so usually when I look at my year, I break my year up into 2 halves. So I try to run one race in honor of my sister. And then my second race, my father passed away from pancreatic cancer. And so I try to run my second race in honor of my dad. So for me, keeping up with my running, or at least running specific distances throughout the year, I use those purposes to kind of guide and hold me accountable to the reason why that I'm running.
I love that you run. I also do the same. I would say also going to the gym for me helps me, like having a routine, some kind of routine. So for me, waking up, going to that gym first thing in the morning, then, planning out my day, picking my 3 tasks as opposed to my 50 million tasks, which, I'm leaving that in 2018. I'm doing 3 tasks per day now that I want to get done. And just being very intentional about those, being very mindful. Also integrating meditation. So I'm trying to do that on weekday mornings and using the Headspace app. That's the one I use. I heard that there's other great ones out there too, like Calm and stuff like that. But I know that the feeling that I get when I'm done is just amazing. So those are kind of my things.
I think that, Martine, you would definitely enjoy bullet journaling, because if you have that, love that checking off the list, bullet journaling can certainly do that for you. even though I'm an instructional technology coach, I love the feel of that paper and pencil and actually just being able to check off each of the things that I've completed or the events that I've attended.
Yeah, I'll jump in really. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Martine.
Yeah, I was just saying that I put this in our separate chat, but this is like the second or third time the idea of journaling is. So I'm definitely going to pull out my journal as soon as I get off, because I'm like, this it keeps happening. Like my pastor mentioned it, and then there was something else I was doing and it came up, and this is like the third time. So I'm definitely going to be looking into. I'm going to be doing some Googling about bullet journaling.
Yeah, and I was going to chime in and also say that that the journaling is key, the blogging is key, just all of it. Another thing that I heard that is that's very good at helping people stay kind of motivated is the streaks. So yeah, so in December I had a coworker challenge me to close all of my Apple Watch circles. So that you know, I did it every day but one. There was one day that was particularly difficult for me, but every other day I did it, and that streak kept me going. I was just like, oh, you know, I don't want to like not do it. So definitely those streaks are great.
To add to your thought about the streaks, last month I did use this app called Step Back, where I put $40 in the pot, and then I had to be consistent for 6 weeks, really 5, but 6 weeks worth of steps. And man, when I tell you, I got down to the last 60 minutes and I was gonna lose my bet. And I've been to the hospital with my daughter. It was just a mess. Like there was everything going against me to just stop. And so I think when you're living intentional, a lot of that is, how are you going to fight against all the reasons why you shouldn't do what you said you were going to do? It was a really powerful moment. I was running. It was freezing cold. I was running up and down my hallways, circles around my kitchen table, because I was like, man, I can't let 1,000 steps or 2,000 steps keep me from winning. And it was just a moment where I realized that it's important to plan and be resourceful when it comes to being intentional about your goals. But on the other side of things, you also have to really be aware of not giving up on whatever it is you're trying to be intentional with.
I like that. A friend of mine who also works in our district, and this is going to lead us into the next question. I'm going to go ahead with the next question, which says, how does being intentional help you in your day-to-day job as an educator? And Martine, you said something that really reminded me of what my friend said. A lot of times when we're doing things and we get overwhelmed with everything, it's like, this is a lost cause. It's not. So what we're trying to do this year is we're starting over every Monday. So I'll be the first to admit that my diet stinks. I eat a lot of junk, and that's something that I need to work on. Well, if I'm, doing well Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and I totally blow it on Friday, that doesn't mean that it's blown for the whole year. I can start again on Monday. I can just enjoy the weekend, start again on Monday. So every Monday, clean slate, whatever happened last week, that's kind of like last week. So to our question again, how does being intentional, because we know that as educators, we have so many things going on. How can that help us by being intentional with our day-to-day jobs?
Oh, go ahead, Martine. Okay. There's something that you just said, Leslie, reminded me of a book that I just kind of, I kind of sort of read it. But The Power of Moments by the Heath brothers is just a highly recommended reading that I would recommend to everyone. And it talks about like different moments, or I might be getting it confused also with When by Daniel Pink. I was kind of reading them both at the same time. But in one of those books, they were talking about how you have like a fresh start. I forgot how many times a year, 80 sometimes a year. They were saying like New Year's, every Monday, every birthday, every like all kinds of different things. And I'm starting to think that was a Daniel Pink book now. But there are always times where you can start over. And so what you said just made me think of that. But to answer the question about how being intentional makes me a better educator, I can say that I used to do the gym thing Monday, Wednesday, Friday, like wake up at early Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. But ever since I moved to doing it every day, then it's kept me more grounded and more focused. Like just having that routine just every single day, then, you know, it's not that I'm on my A game Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. It's that I'm on my A game every day because I started off my routine. I started off with a small win with the gym. So that kind of sets the motion in place for the rest of the day to be successful. So that's my take.
As an educator, especially in support roles, I want to take the moment to stop and talk just a little bit about support roles. In instructional coach roles or positions that aren't what I consider to be traditional, educators or teachers who teach students every day. I think there's always this misperception that if one is not serving students directly, either as a teacher or as an assistant principal or as a principal, then I think often audiences may not always understand the intent behind the role. And so I think part of what I do in being intentional every day is making sure that those around me understand the nature of my work and understand clearly how I can best support them. I've also found that that process is taking, like, it's not an overnight thing. With support roles like mine, especially mine's on the secondary level, in my 15 years, this is the first time I've really seen instructional support roles on a secondary campus. I've heard of literacy coaches on elementary. I've seen similar roles in middle school, but I've never seen this type of role where one's job is to support people instructionally on a high school level, especially when you consider that high schools, you know, a high school, if we think about how many different courses, there could be up to 200 to 300 courses depending on the size of the school. Not necessarily teachers, just courses, just types of content. And so when I am working to be intentional, I just work to make sure people understand how I can support them. Strategically, I talk a lot about co-teaching and what the co-teaching looks like. And I make sure, like, one of the things that I do, our principal has a department chair meeting once or twice a month. And so I go to those meetings because that allows me to work with all of the teacher leaders and really talk to them about how I can support their classes. The ones that I've actually had a chance to work with, they're able to also share out, like, the kinds of things we've done together and how those things went. And because that's one of the times in our building where it's a representation of everyone, it kind of breaks down the barrier that if you're not a math person, then you can't help me with math, or because I'm not a social studies person, you can't help me in social studies. And so for me, that's one strategy I use to try to be intentional. I'm really intentional about going to department chair meetings to really help teacher leaders understand how I can support them.
I think that's great. We're going to go ahead and move on to the fifth question, and that is, how does reflection play a part in being intentional?
I'll jump in with that one. To me, being reflective, as an instructional tech coach, when I'm working with the teachers, there may be instances, and it's just like when I was in the classroom teaching English, there were days that my lessons were absolutely on it 100%, and other days that my lessons did not meet anybody's target. The kids didn't get what they were supposed to. I knew, but then I would have to go back and say, okay, this is what worked, this is what didn't work. So I do the same thing as an instructional tech coach, and I'm not as good as I should be about my blog, but I do try to blog about things. And then I'm also, again, with my journaling, in my bullet journal, I write down just a little bit about what happened that day so that I'll know going forward, this is something that I should pursue, or this is something that I should not pursue.
Yeah, I'm actually a pretty reflective person in general. Like, I probably reflect, I'm on the other end, I probably reflect too much because I'm always I guess it's the small perfectionist in me who wants things to like be just so and just right, or for every teacher to have a great experience. I'm always reflecting on, especially how I communicate messages, and if the intent matches what I actually, if the person understood my intent and what I actually communicated. And so that's one way that reflecting with intent plays a role in my life. Like I'm always in the back of my mind, thinking, was my message clear? Was my intent received? I've probably last year, about last 6 months of the year, I really started being purposeful about even asking, do you understand my position? Do you understand my full intent? Because if you're thinking my intent is this, then let me clarify, because that's not the direction that I was going in. And so I think, oftentimes when we talk about being intentional, though most of it is about reaching a goal and attaining a goal, on the other side is when you're reflecting, making sure your partner, your spouse, your student, your administrator, your district level professional, whoever you're talking to, has a full understanding of your intent and your message. I think that's really, really important, both in our professional world, but even in our social and our political world as well.
Yeah, and I would definitely agree with everything that you all have said. I just want to take a second to give a shout out to our folks who are interacting with us on both Twitter as well as on our YouTube live page. So just wanted to say hello to a few folks. So hello to Peggy, hello to Jennifer, hello to Marvia, hello to Rochelle. I feel like I might be missing somebody. I'm sorry if I am, but these are our folks on our YouTube live, and we have several people who are also tweeting with us today. So we have Elford, and we have Tim. So hello, and we also have Jen there as well. So Jen doing double duty. So just wanted to say hello. And one thing that was said, let me see. So Jen said for the last one, I lean toward being a bulldozer and always running ahead. Writing a reflection down in my bullet journal pushes me to slow down. And I would definitely agree with that. And she said, life goals met. Got a shout out. So yay. All right. Awesomeness.
And another bullet journaler.
Yep.
If you're not bullet journaling, I do encourage you to look it up. There is a Facebook group. Actually, there are several Facebook groups, and it has helped me tremendously with pretty much everything that I do. I have my habit tracker, and I'm able to go in every day. I have a variety of habits. Some of them are personal, some of them are professional, just so that I can I can make sure that I'm staying on target with everything that I need to do, because there's in the role that I have, there's a lot that needs to be done. And as Martine said, at the secondary level, there are so many courses that we're expected to be able to interact with. And this is something that Robin and I talk a lot about. In our roles as instructional technology coaches, we don't just support one content area. We're expected to be able to help everybody. I taught English for 11 years, but when the chemistry teacher says, hey, this is something I want to do, chemistry was so not my favorite subject in high school, but I'm expected to be able to, provide resources and support. So my bullet journal helps me stay focused, and it's kind of like my roadmap. If you all are old enough to remember the Rand McNally atlases, every year in January I would go buy one, and I would plan all these trips because I like to travel. Well, my bullet journal is my Rand McNally roadmap. How about our last question? Are we ready for that? We are. Our last question, why do you think being intentional leads to positivity?
Oh man, being intentional, if you're in the realm of a family, when a family is intentional, they get closer, they're brought together. If you're in a classroom and you're being intentional about everything that you do and how you interact with students and how you shift and adjust to meet all of those needs, it creates better experiences for everyone involved. This year, this is I'm planning this huge trip to Disney. And so we're about a year and almost a little over a year ahead of time. Like the dates are not even listed. We're just talking about it. And this is the first time that I've seen or had my family come together and be intentional about planning time together and having a meaningful experience. And I have been thoroughly enjoying the process because there's intent. It's not, we're going to get together on the holidays because that's what you do, or because you have to, or because that's tradition. Being intentional in our lives, it opens the door to new traditions that can bring people together in new ways that they never experienced. I'm learning early on that, it's 9 of us going, probably maybe even 12, might be 12 of us going. And so that's 12 different people's needs and wants and desires that you all have to put together for this one goal of us having a great time together. Well, that's going to take a ton of detail and planning and intention. And I think that's the beauty of what comes from being intentional in our lives, whether it's personal and planning a family trip, professionally in our classrooms, administrative teams, instructional coaching teams, PLCs. Everything has to start with, where do you want to go? We can figure out how to get there together.
Absolutely. And I would agree with that, and also say that I don't know if this is a Virgo thing, but I'm not really big on surprises. So I like to know, where I'm going. I like to know what the end game is. Like, people always say, find your why, find your why. Well, I need to know, why am I doing X, Y, and Z? Because a friend of mine, Justin Schleider, I always hear him say that time is the only non-renewable resource. So before giving your time to something, then you need to figure out exactly why. Why are you giving it your time? Because you're not going to ever get that time back. So definitely being intentional, planning it out, knowing where you're going. To me, if I have a target I can aim for, then that'll keep me focused towards that target. If the target is, if I'm blindfolded, like it's Bird Box style or something, then I mean, I have no idea where I'm aiming. So and that's going to stress me out. So I want to be able to see what I'm shooting for. So that is how intentionality can lead to positivity for me, because when I know, where I'm going, when I can see like how much closer I'm getting, then that's definitely going to generate the positive feelings.
I also am a Virgo, so I understand that.
Yes.
Yeah, but in preparing for this, I looked at several different articles, and I came across a list that had 5 different ways to live more intentionally. So the first one is consider an ideal day. 2 is to create a foundation of small daily actions. 3, express gratitude every day. 4, make the bed every morning. And 5, pause and breathe. And so I just wanted to bring everyone's attention to that. Number 3 is express gratitude. And that's something that I do put in my journal every day, because there is something to be grateful for every single day. Whether or not you're having the worst day ever, you can still find something to be grateful for. And I think that eventually does lead to positivity, because you're thinking about just the small things that you're thankful for.
Yeah, I really like that you brought up the pause and breathe. I think especially January, as I was preparing for the new year, there are a ton of different ways and styles and techniques to make the most of our year. I know Sarah brought up the 3. You brought up the bullet journaling, and so I like that part about pausing and breathing, because I think that's the only way we're going to get to October and November still working through the habits and the strategies that we're trying to do. I think what causes us to fall short a lot of times is that we're trying to do it all so quickly that we don't just pause and breathe and realize that it's a turtle race, and we can really take our time. I was watching a video the other day, and this guy was talking about this idea of, instead of trying to plan to run 10 miles every day, just plan to do 15 minutes. and you'll go a lot further, a lot longer. And so that's something that just pausing and breathing and taking it one day at a time. When you said that, that really was relevant for me.
I love that list, Robin. And if you will share that with us, that would be awesome. The one that I liked the best was making the bed every day. When I was a kid, I never made up my bed. And I have an older sister and we shared our room. And every day I got in trouble because she would tell on me because I never made up my bed because I didn't see the point in it. I was getting back in it at the end of the evening. Well, for the last, I think, 3 years, absolutely every single day I get up and I make up my bed. And once the bed is made up, I'm not allowed to get back in it. I can sit on it, but I'm not allowed to get in it. And that has helped with being intentional because if I'm in the bed, if I've had a bad day and I come home and get in the bed, then I'm wallowing in whatever's gone on. And I'm not, focusing on finding a solution. And also there's just this feeling of, I don't want to say joy. I'm not coming up with the right word, but when I come home in the evening, no matter what kind of day I've had, when I go in my room and my bed is neatly made, it's like, I've done something right. I could have done everything wrong that day. My boss could have yelled at me, whatever, but my bed is made up and all is well in my world. So, Robin, if you would share that with us, that would be awesome. And I thank you, Martine and Sarah, for joining in on our panel, and we'll turn it back over to Sarah to wrap it up for us.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. This was an amazing conversation. So all three of you, thank you for your insight. Want to thank our moderators. So we had Leslie, aka the Figinator, and Robin, and we had a panelist, Martine. So awesomeness. Thank you to everyone who was tweeting with us, who was watching on YouTube Live. So we're going to be back on Tuesday. Tuesday, we're going to have a special episode at 7:30 with Dr. Slade, who is going to be talking about Bennett College and the campaign to save Bennett. So definitely tune in for that podcast with an s.edumatch.org /tweet talk. Also on Tuesday, all day long, Alyssa Frazier will be launching her book, Daddy's Favorites. So that is coming out, the very first ever children's book released through EduMatch Publishing. So the first of many to come. So thank you to Alyssa. She was just on like about an hour ago talking about her book. So definitely check that out. So see how you can win and get your free copy. A lot of really cool giveaways and definitely believe in the message. So check that out if you have not already done so. So for tonight, we're going to go ahead and sign off and look for this on Facebook. Look for this as a podcast within the next few weeks, and we will definitely see you around. So everybody have a wonderful, wonderful week. See you next week. Same bad time, same bad channel for another episode of Tweet and Talk.